I'm pretty sure most of us would agree that Ben Solo was one of the best things about the Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Adam Driver's performance is just mesmerizing. And what's really amazing is that he's not even the main character of this trilogy. He's actually really more of a supporting character at times. And in The Rise of Skywalker, in the third act especially, he gets really sidelined. And it really becomes Rey's story once again. And that's nothing against Rey, but it's pretty telling that J.J. Abrams had to literally throw Ben Solo into a pit out of the scene so that he wouldn't overshadow everyone else in that final fight. It's just one of the many issues with the whole third act of The Rise of Skywalker, but that is a video for another time. And I know J.J. Abrams has a tendency to kill off major characters and even very popular characters in his movies and TV shows. But honestly, I think he went too far this time. People wanted to see Ben Solo truly shine, and they wanted to see a happy ending, and we were denied that. And I'm gonna share in this video why I think Ben Solo should have survived. I knew going into episode 9 that it was very unlikely that Ben Solo would survive the finale. I'm not trying to dog on J.J. Abrams as a filmmaker, but I think he honestly missed a great opportunity here. An opportunity for something completely new to the Star Wars series. I say that because one of the most frustrating things about the way Ben Solo's story ends is because it's something we've seen before in the character of Anakin Skywalker. Now, I am not saying that Ben Solo's arc being similar to Anakin's is in and of itself a bad thing. In fact, in a lot of ways, I really love this. But the fact that it ends on the same tragic note is such a disappointment, and to me is too familiar. I don't know why it always seems to play out this way, but it just seems like the Skywalkers always have these incredibly tragic endings. And yeah, we get to see Anakin in Return of the Jedi as a Force ghost. We know that he communicates with his son for years after that. And Luke also turns into a Force ghost, so they're not completely forgotten. Although for some reason, we never get to see Anakin on screen in the entire sequel trilogy in any capacity except as a voice.
Because apparently that's all Anakin has earned in his 6 films. But I want to talk a little bit more about Ben Solo. Now, I mentioned earlier that Ben Solo and his grandfather Anakin both have pretty similar arcs. For one thing, they both seek approval from parental figures. They're both emotionally driven to these extreme choices that lead them down to the dark side. Kylo Ren is created when he believes Luke finds him a threat. And Vader is created when he's forced to choose between saving the one he loves and siding with the Jedi, and most of which have become blind, arrogant, and lack the compassion that he possesses. And ultimately, they're both brought back into the light by an act of love. But one of the key differences between Ben Solo and his grandfather is that when Ben Solo becomes Kylo Ren, even in his greatest moments of anger, even when he is completely given over to rage and the dark side, he never fully embraces it in the way that his grandfather did. Even in Kylo Ren's darkest moments, he is constantly pulled back to the light and tempted to return to it. He does end up killing his own father, but he becomes weaker because of it. And then when he is given the opportunity of killing his own mother, he again hesitates. In The Last Jedi, even when he sheds the Vader persona and tells Rey to let the past die, and even at the conclusion, when he offers Rey his hand, he is still unable to completely detach himself from the past. And see, this is one of the reasons why I think his character is so compelling, because even though he says to let the past die, and he makes steps to try and make that happen, he can't let go of it. And even when he wants to be powerful with the dark side, and he is, he's still tempted by the light. So he's never fully able to live out his convictions because of his attachment, and because of his sense of abandonment, and because he does desire to be in the light. Even in The Rise of Skywalker, when he's fully established himself as the leader of the First Order and it seems like he's completely given to the dark side, he's still unable to completely detach himself. And this is indicated by what he says to Rey, how he can't return to his mother. Just on a side note, I think it's really weird that Kylo Ren did not take more of an issue with the fact that Palpatine had been manipulating him all these years. Now, he does reveal later in the film to Rey that he's not simply submitting to another master, but rather playing a long con. Maybe he simply wasn't interested in fighting another enemy. I'm pretty sure we can safely say that Palpatine had zero interest in letting Kylo Ren operate freely. And throughout this entire trilogy, we've never been given a clear indication as to how powerful the First Order actually is. And the fact that the Final Order would increase the power of the First Order by 10,000-fold means that they were probably severely outgunned. On that note, I think it would have been a really cool twist if the First Order had decided to actually reject the Final Order and declare war on them. But not only that, actually join the Resistance and become a force of good. I remember leading up to The Rise of Skywalker, I kept thinking to myself that that would be such a cool way to show the redemption of Ben Solo, and he would be able to convince all of his followers to do the same thing, but I guess they decided to just play it safe. I know a lot of people felt like the more interesting angle would be for Kylo Ren not to be redeemed, and if they had followed the Duel of the Fates script more closely, then that's likely what would have happened. But to me, Star Wars has always been about redemption, at least with the Skywalkers. Maybe not every character, but as for the Skywalkers, these guys are always meant to be redeemed. Their legacy should not go down in darkness. I think the fact that they have hinted so many times at the potential redemption for Ben Solo, and the fact that he has this attachment that he's unable to let go of, it makes it pretty obvious that he's not a character that's meant to go down in darkness. Characters that undergo the most change in a story usually turn out to be the most interesting because it shows growth and progression for a character. So for Kylo Ren to remain the same as he started would be a completely underwhelming arc for his character. The last thing I really want to touch on is the potential that would have come with his survival. One of the most frustrating things about the third act of The Rise of Skywalker is that the film seems like it's just in a rush to conclude itself. Everything from the final battle against Palpatine to the scene on the moisture farm with Rey happens fairly quickly. We're not really given a great look at what's happening with the rest of the galaxy. We get almost no scenes with the remaining heroes aside from the celebration scene. We don't even get any dialogue from Luke or Leia or any of the other characters from the Force. There's not really any mention of how things are concluding, how balance has been restored. Nothing is really said about everything that's happened, even though a lot just happened. Considering the fact that Rey has spent way more time with Kylo Ren and interacted with him more and had way more of an emotional journey with him, to have almost nothing to say about the character at the end, and without him even appearing as a Force ghost or anything like that, is a major disappointment. It just feels like he was kind of tossed aside for no reason. And this is made even worse by the fact that the Rey Skywalker moment is something I still honestly just cringe at, and I will make a video about that another time. But the fact that the scene that takes place, instead of something where Ben survives and gets to dialogue with Rey or see her bury those lightsabers and display her new one or something like that, the fact that he doesn't get to partake at all in this ending scene makes everything worse. I mean, for goodness sake, Ben doesn't even say a word except ow in the last act of the film. I mean, they don't have a conversation. He doesn't get to say anything. She just says his name and then he dies. But because I feel robbed by the time I get to the final scene, it's hard for me to enjoy this moment, honestly. Even if they had no intention of continuing this saga with these characters, By leaving Ben Solo alive, it leaves our imagination completely open to all kinds of possibilities, and it allows the franchise to continue exploring their characters in other media, whether it be video games or novels or TV shows, something like that. But because Ben Solo's life has been ended prematurely, we're not able to explore those possibilities. And because his story ends so abruptly, and we're not given the opportunity for any possibility of future content with him, of his story being explored more, or of him and Rey creating a new Jedi Order of some kind, I feel completely robbed and shortchanged as an audience. I've been scratching my head trying to figure out why J.J. Abrams and Lucasfilm decided to kill off the character and why they thought that that would be a more appealing way to end the story. And I honestly cannot think of how it better serves the story to do it this way. I think it would have been better to let him live, let the possibilities be endless for their futures, even if we never get to see Adam Driver reprise the role. And it sounds like he's not really interested in doing it again, although never say never in Hollywood. I know I'm not the only one who feels this way, and I'm sure if you've seen Twitter and anything to do with the Rise of Skywalker, you've probably seen a lot of the hashtags like Ben Solo deserved better and bring Ben Solo back, and yes, you will see me retweet that a lot if you ever follow me on Twitter or interact with me there. As upset as I am, I know that's not the ending I'm ever going to get, and so I just have to deal with what happened. And so I'm grateful for Ben Solo while we had him as a character. I think that he was by far the most compelling in the entire sequel trilogy. I think Adam Driver's performance was so mesmerizing, was so compelling, and he brought so much passion and energy to that character that even with my disappointments with the rest of this trilogy, I'd say it's worth it just to see Ben Solo once more. I know not everyone shares the same opinion about Ben Solo, and I'm sure that there are plenty of people who disagree, but I would love to know what you think. Do you think Ben Solo should have survived, or do you think it was appropriate for him to die in the way he did? And that's all I got, folks, so hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button and leave a like on the video. It really helps the channel out. Have a great day, folks. Thanks for stopping by.